Welcome to the 1905 podcast, home of the world champions, Chelsea. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. Oh, wow. The final whistle has just blown. Chelsea 2, Liverpool 1. This is going to be an immediate and emotional reaction to, just an incredible win to end what was, let's be fair, a really fantastic performance that many of us probably didn't think this Chelsea team, with all the injuries that we had in us, certainly wasn't what we predicted in the preview pod. But wow, what a moment, and a reminder about what it is to be a football fan, because my heart is racing, and I apologise in advance if this is a bit manic, but I have just been jumping around like an absolute madman, and I haven't quite come down yet. Wow, what a way to finish. I wasn't there tonight, unfortunately. I had to give up my ticket for the bridge because my wife is away for the weekend and I have the kids to look after, but I have just shouted down the house, and the neighbours are probably wondering what's going on, because when Estevão went in, and God, if you had to pick a man to score the winner, didn't you want it to be him? I thought he was electric, as he often has been in a Chelsea shirt, let's be fair, but he was electric when he came on, always trying to make things happen. And like many listening, I had my head in my hands when he put an absolutely delicious cross in on the 91st minute, and Enzo Fernandez hits the post with a header. And you're thinking, that was the chance. You sort of felt that was it, didn't you? And are we even going to face a Liverpool sucker punch for not taking our chances? No, we just kept going. I mean, so much credit to the players up there. I won't go through individuals. I'll save that for a calmer note tomorrow. But what I will say is, they said it on the commentary, Enzo Maresca could see that game was there for us to win. And he kept on pushing the team forward, saying, go. He was very vocal today. You could really see him almost orchestrating from the sideline. And even when that chance didn't happen for Enzo, we went again. And you know what? A brilliantly worked goal. I thought Enzo Fernandez was superb, by the way. I thought his part in the goal was superb as well. Great ball from Cucurella. And, that is what it's about, isn't it? Being a Chelsea fan and having a moment like that at Stamford Bridge in front of the Matthew Harding stand. What a moment. And actually a goal you could enjoy, because you knew there was probably no VAR intervention. So it was pure joy of celebration, as it had been for the first unbelievable goal from Caicedo, which feels like about a day ago at this point. I won't go through analysis of the game. I'll hand over to Joe as well to give his instant response. But there's so much in that game to talk about, from just really excellent displays across the pitch. I thought, to a man, just about every player on the pitch played well for us today. Maresca's tactics, and again, we've been critical of him quite a bit this season. He stepped up today, and I think he outthought Slot in every department, and it was almost whatever Slot could come up with, we had an answer for. And bear in mind, that is without, by the end, 6 centre-backs out injured. They said, I think on the commentary when Achimpong going off, I mean, you couldn't help but kind of almost laugh at the ridiculousness of it at the end when you've got Reece James and Hato at centre-back. But didn't they do well? And Reece James, who I have mentioned a couple of times the idea of him at centre-back on the pod. I mean, he's that good a player, you put him anywhere, couldn't you? But he just settled everything down at the back. And yeah, and do you know what? We got what we deserved. I've already had a message from my brother, big Liverpool fan, and he said, well done, Chelsea, you deserved it today. And we did. I'm going to give a small negative, okay? A small negative as a fan who, I'd say, quite obsessed with the stadium experience type of things. If there's anyone at the club listening, or anyone who can influence this, and I'm sure there isn't, we do not need music after a goal at Stamford Bridge. The Stamford Bridge atmosphere, yes, it is struggling at times at the moment. It has been for a few years. it isn't struggling after a goal. And actually, we have an iconic big goal noise, which is the slamming of the boards, which is actually the one thing about Stamford Bridge atmosphere, which is quite special, actually. And you don't need help in creating some magic after a goal like that. And I just feel like playing Chelsea dagger after a goal is just, it's just not Chelsea. It's not Chelsea. It's not the Premier League in my mind. And yeah, I'd like to see that very quickly abolished. I did sign the petition that was going around. I think it's had 1,500 signatures at the moment to get rid of that. Let's hope the club actually listens to the fans on that one. Because for me, at a moment like that, not that it's ruined it, of course it hasn't, who cares, but you don't need it. We want to just see the fans and the reaction. I mean, the celebrations at the end, I will mention that every single player, I don't know if you noticed, it went up to Estevão, giving him hugs, high fives, and he'd almost looked emotional. Even Cole Palmer came on and gave him, they had a really nice embrace. He was celebrating in front of obviously Matthew Harding's stand. And my kids know one thing about Chelsea, and that is that when it's a one step beyond game, it means that something very special has just happened. And it is something very special. That was really, really good. Oh, I am buzzing, and I'm going to have a very good Saturday evening now, enjoying that win. And it is a win that we didn't see coming, isn't it? Come on, you Chelsea.
Yes, mate, I can completely understand the reaction, particularly after that back four lineup was announced. I was like, oh dear, maybe we could be in for real trouble today. But as it turned out, the team performed way and above I thought they could. After the sort of tumultuous few weeks we've had and few games with, Brighton, etc. last week, you just felt the worst, and you couldn't see Chelsea pulling a result off here. I know there've been rumours that Liverpool have been a little bit poor defensively and all that sort of stuff, but you look at their firepower going forward and their midfield and you just go, wow. I mean, there's goals everywhere. But, Chelsea to a man were absolutely superb. And I don't want to overreact the other way. It'd be very easy for me to come on here and say, we're going to go and win the league, because we're not. But what I was impressed with was that sort of letting go of the handbrake. I think Enzo Maresca sometimes just needs to remind himself that when Chelsea play like that and they press as hard as they do from minute one to the end, they're a completely different animal. And I have to say, Mark Dew, I give him some credit, because my goodness me, that boy worked his socks off when he come on. And why are we not giving him game time? It just makes no sense that he's not had any game time until today. And yeah, I think he epitomised everything in the second half that we did that was good. And obviously, huge shout outs all over the field. There was good performances everywhere. To a person, you could spend all day and night going on about certain individuals and how they performed. But the one player I am going to pick out here, just very, very briefly, is Reece James, because he played a few positions today. And, when Achampong sadly went off injured, I'm not sure what that is. But Reece came in, and I've said, Chris, on the pod, haven't I, that Reece, for me, is probably not someone that you'd slide in at centre-back and he wouldn't do well there. I think we all know he would do well, but I think over a course of a few weeks, you'd slowly get found out because he's not as tall as he should be for a centre-back. But wow, what a performance he put in all over the park. And bear in mind, he does sometimes look like he's playing on one leg, I'll be honest. But he was everywhere. And, his leadership has been questioned. We've questioned it slightly. Roland questioned it slightly last week as well. And I think those questions will still remain. One game doesn't make a leader, as it were. But I think credit where it's due. Sometimes you do have to lead by your performances. And with Tommy Tuchel in attendance tonight, I think that he'd done himself no harm for England recognition coming up. But it was just one of those performances that you thought that once Liverpool got the equaliser just after half time, just sort of 10 minutes after half time, you're thinking, well, goodness me, are they going to go now and sort of swarm us and suffocate us? But do you know what? Chelsea really performed well. And they surprised me by how it was the winning of the ball. How many times we won the ball back and actually went somewhere with it. I find it hard to talk about Chelsea sometimes because you see the Brighton game last week and games previous to this, and you kind of go, where was this a few weeks ago? Why has it taken a patched up Chelsea team with like 7 or 8 or 9 injuries, plus a suspension in Trev, to come up with a performance like that? It doesn't make any sense. And there are your staple players like Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, Marc Cucurella, etc., who perform at, probably certainly Moises and Cucurella perform at 8 out of 10 every week, sometimes higher than that. But all the kind of players that are on the peripheries were fantastic today. Lavia, when he come on, did a fantastic job, etc. It was just really good to see. And yeah, with the international window coming up, a couple of weeks of that, it was good to go away with 3 points and to beat a big team, a proper team at home. People were labelled last year's victory against them as they won the league and they weren't taking it seriously. Well, this year they can't say that. And, with a few games today where teams had won, you're sort of thinking, it'd be nice to keep pace with some of these teams because otherwise we're going to get cut adrift if we're not careful. And we delivered. And there's nothing like a last-minute winner. Don't get me wrong. If you knew that was going to happen every week, you would certainly sign up for that. But, you just don't. When I saw the clock come up to 7 minutes, I was like, oh, for goodness sake, it's bound to be Liverpool time. But as it turned out, it worked in our favour today. And again, a lovely little pass from Enzo Fernandez, a great cross from Cucurella. And Estevão Willian turning up at the back post to get his first goal for the club was just magic. And yeah, I mean, you just can't put enough, you can't say enough good things about that team and that performance today. It just baffles me that we can be so good and so ineffective from week to week. That's where it has to change. And you'd like to think that Enzo, they're all going international duty, I know, but you'd like to see that Enzo can kind of get hold of this group and say, when you put your minds to it, that's what you can actually do. Because this team was drifting before today, really drifting. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to start predicting Chelsea to lose every week because that seems to be the way to go. If I say Chelsea are going to win, we never do. And obviously the first time I've said we're going to lose, we've won. So it certainly seems to be the way ahead. But yeah, we needed it today because that feeling of losing another game would have just felt like, goodness me, we know we are in the abyss somewhat. What sort of team are we? Where are we going to finish? I mean, Maresca's press conference yesterday was quite bullish, I have to say. He sort of give it both barrels and was basically saying by the end of the season, let's judge us on that statistic. But if you keep losing every week, you'd be hard pressed to keep your job, let alone wait till the end of the season. So yeah, he sort of said a few things yesterday that made me think, okay, you got to back that up now. And to be fair, the performance, regardless if we won, drew or lost today, I don't think any Chelsea fan can sort of say that they didn't try and those players didn't give enough, more than 100%. They all gave everything they had. So, as fans, that's just all we want to see. Like last weekend against Brighton, we never saw that. We saw moments, a decent-ish first half. Obviously, the red card happens in the second half, but just the energy levels just drifted away. Where was that? And I know every game is played on its merit and every game is different, but you just feel like this Chelsea team have got that in them, but they have to start showing it on a regular basis. And until they do, it's hard to get excited about a title challenge or maybe a Champions League run or something. I think the win midweek would have given them a little bit of a boost, even though the game was very unconvincing. A win's a win. And no one's going to look at that next season and say, oh, what was the game like? No one cares. It's just Chelsea 1, Benfica 0. So I think it's good to keep winning. And I think, Chris, you said it last year, even in the Europa League, if you can win games 3-4-0 and then go to the Premier League, it does give every player a little bit of a lift. So yeah, it was a performance today of real high quality. Loved how we played. We are short in a few areas, as you know. Centre back now seems to be a real issue. What we're going to do with that? The window might have come at a good time because even though we're not huge fans of Tosin, he may be available after the window. Achimpong, we don't know what his injury is. It might just be minor. Hopefully it is because he was immense today at times too. Big shout out to Hato when he come on because that was a difficult period. 15-ish minutes to go, something like that. Again, I'm guessing, but that was a tough time to come on because Liverpool would have smelt blood there with him, thinking, another younger player, we can get at him. But he was fantastic. He sort of didn't drop the level, which was really, really nice. And I'd like to give a little shout out to Malagusta, because I've given him a little bit of stick on this podcast, but he does have these moments in him where you think, again, where's that been all season? He was everywhere today. I wouldn't have had him down as the assist maker for Moises Caicedo's fantastic strike in the first half. Let's not forget that. That was an absolute rocket. And we're so, well, I'm so blown away by how good that guy is that I almost accept that he's good every week. And I almost don't mention his performances, but he was absolutely brilliant today. And that goal, once again, just showing why he's probably the best number 6 in the Premier League. Absolutely wonderful. And just lastly, I think, what does that result mean to me today? I didn't give us a cat and hell's chance before the game started. And I wasn't that nervous before the game, which is weird because it's a massive game. Chelsea at home, you fancy us against anybody normally, but I didn't think we'd win today, you know, and I don't want to sound defeatist, but it's just the way the season's gone. And, you know, I feel a bit annoyed by that, but that's just the way that Chelsea have performed. So it's given me no kind of confidence to feel that we'd ever go and get a result here. And in a weird way, I kind of watched it just purely thinking that at some point Liverpool will score and I'll be disappointed. But the more we grew into that game, it just proved to me that the manager has got heart and he does care, because that celebration at the end meant a lot to me as a fan. Like, seeing Enzo Maresca run 60 yards down the touchline, and he fully went for it as well, by the way, and he's in with his players celebrating. Those sorts of reactions are the reactions that I've wanted to see from him and from like our owners in a weird way. You know, I said about, you know, let's hear from the owners. It's the sort of thing that gives you that little bit of a buzz before an international window where you kind of go, maybe he's got more than we think he has. Maybe there is something there. And maybe he can get something out of this Chelsea team, because like on occasions he gives weird answers in press conferences and stuff, and you kind of go, oh, I don't know, I didn't like that or whatever. But when you see that passion and you see how much he wanted it, like he got a yellow card when he was complaining about the Garnacho foul in the box when Slobosai pushed him. And to be fair, when a player's running at that speed, and Slobosai just pushed him in the box, by the way, surely that has to be looked at. It looked a penalty all day long to me, I'll be honest with you, because he doesn't make any attempt to play the ball but push the player over. Gary Neville said on commentary that it was never a penalty. I'm not sure what game he was watching. But, yeah, I've seen a lot worse penalties given for other things than that. So, yeah, very, very weird. But the fact he remonstrated and got himself a yellow card, I thought, do you know what? It does sow the seed for later on if something happens. So it's not the worst yellow card in the world. And like you say, he will not give a monkeys that he got red carded for celebrating with his players. But look, I said earlier on, we're not going to win the league. We're not going to win the league. I know that. Let's not get silly. But I think it does at least give me that little bit of belief that when we come back after the international window, we might have 1 or 2 players back from injury, suspension, etc. And we do have to start going places and picking up points, 3 points at that, not just points, and sort of proving to not just us, but other Premier League teams too, that we are a real force, and we're not just going to win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game, because you can't build any momentum on that. We have to start going on a little bit of a run, and today against Liverpool, that is about the perfect way to start your weekend. So I hope that the boys can enjoy that. I hope they can all go away on international duty and not get injured. That would be fantastic. And when we return, we have Ange Postecoglou's Nottingham Forest at the City Ground, followed by Ajax and Sunderland at home. So some games there. I'm not going to say we're going to win them, because that would be the worst thing to do, but some very favourable fixtures if we play our cards right. So absolutely fantastic. And football way, bloody hell.
Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905podcast. And now, back to the show. What a very good morning it is. Sunday morning, woken up, big spring in my step, won't lie. And not to give you too much detail, I woke up for a wee at like 5 a.m. and was just woke up with a big smile on my face when I remembered that we'd beaten Liverpool. And yeah, I was thinking this morning, why am I so happy? Why was my reaction so wild in my head yesterday? And of course, it's a last minute winner against Liverpool. It's always going to be massive. But I think it goes a little bit deeper than that for me, because I was seriously concerned about our season after the last couple of weeks, and whether really we still had a chance of doing anything interesting this year. And I think that what the performance, as Joe's mentioned, which hadn't felt like it was coming, it was all feeling a little bit concerning to us. And I think what we saw yesterday is that there is life in this team, there is life in Maresca. And on our day, as we saw against PSG, and now we've seen against Liverpool, we can beat just about anyone in the world. In fact, we can beat anyone in the world on our day, which just gives you faith in the fact that, yeah, this season could still be very, very interesting. And of course it can, it's so early. But the signs were just a little concerning. But we're back amongst it now. And, I never really like looking at the league table too early, but I think I was going into yesterday's game, again, like Joe, not nervous, because I just didn't expect us to get anything. My cousin, who's also a Liverpool fan, messaged me before the game and said, "Are you confident today?" And I said, "We got no chance." I said, "With all the injuries that we've got, no Palmer, basically no centre-backs, as that it'll be, you guys will win it a canter." And I was looking at the league table thinking, right, so we could be going into the international break. We could be 10th or 11th and just feeling like we're miles off it already. And again, it's so early days, but you look at it now and you're like, oh, okay, we're 5 points off top. And again, I don't think we're going to win the league, but it does mean that we're right amongst where we should be and we want to be in terms of this season. So yeah, it just feels like, I think, reassuring more than anything to know that there is life. There is life, and this season there's a long, long way to go, and we're still in every competition, and who knows. And the reaction, I mentioned it briefly in my note yesterday, but I've seen even more of it. The reaction of the whole squad after the game on the pitch and in the dugout, you saw it. All the injured players like Asugo, Tosin, Palmer, obviously, all on the pitch, all celebrating with the group, and it kind of gave you that feeling that, okay, there is a real togetherness here, and yeah, of course you're going to celebrate a victory like that. Why wouldn't you? But it was nice to, and kind of reassuring to see that, yeah, the group is still very much together. Yeah, that was my first sort of thought on how I feel this morning. The second part has to be the performance. I think it's an obvious thing to say, but it's by far the best that we've played all season, and nothing else really comes close. It's the first time we've really looked like a proper coherent team. And when you consider that was against what is on paper a bit of a Liverpool super team, when you're bringing on the likes of Ekitike and Wirtz, you're fearing the worst, but we dealt with everything thrown at us brilliantly. And again, with so many players out. And I mentioned there's 6 centre-backs in my voice note yesterday. I was almost doubting myself after it, thinking, oh, yeah, can't be right, can it? But then you go, no, okay, Colwell and Fofana, probably your 1 and 2. There you go, they're out. Tosin and Chalobah, 3 and 4, they're out. And then suddenly Badiashile and Achimpong leave the pitch as well. So you had 6 out. And Reece James and Hato come in and, as we said, just did a great job. I want to duck back and talk about some individual performances in a second, because I do think that quite a few players deserve a mention after such a great performance yesterday. But the performance as a whole was fantastic, and the character and the personality. And we, as we all know, we took a lot of stick of, what was this, 18 months ago, I guess, against Liverpool themselves when we lost the League Cup final, and we were called the billionaire bottle jobs, as we lost to a very young Liverpool team. Well, do you know what? Yesterday, it was a little bit in reverse, wasn't it? Because it was Liverpool who had all the superstars on the pitch, and it was Chelsea who had a really patched up defence, but held firm and came out with a win with a very, very young team. And it actually, when I think about it properly, it makes me really proud of what we did. Really, really proud. So, yeah, very, very happy, and all credit to everyone. Let's go through some of the performances, I'm tying up whether to mention everyone. I won't do that because we mentioned a few players already. I do want to mention Achimpong and Badishil because I think we all probably were. I mean, it was the obvious two to play, but still worried about that as a two. And I thought, I mean, I messaged at half time. I didn't want to jinx it, but I was like, this is the best Badishil has played in 2 years plus. I thought he was brilliant when he was on the pitch. I mean, I was sort of joking. We've got Marcel Desailly back. He was so aggressive on the front foot. His pressing on Isak and Salah. I mean, both of them. Let's actually bring in the conversation as well. But so aggressive on the front foot. The passing out from the back was excellent. Everything was on point. There was that brilliant moment when Achimpong in the first half nicked it off Isak's toe and then went on a run, basically 50 yards up the pitch, which was superb. And I was watching those two and thinking, wow, okay, Achimpong we've got loads of high hopes for in terms of what he can become, and a performance like that just fills you with a lot of excitement with his potential. And with Badishil, perhaps someone that we've thrown a lot of doubt on the podcast, but coming up with a performance like that, again, you think, okay, he's got something then. He's got something. It was none of his, we weren't seeing that sleepiness stuff that we talked about, being a bit dozy. He was really on his game, and you just hope that with both of them, the injuries aren't too bad, because with Badishil particularly, it would kind of sum up his Chelsea career, wouldn't it? If he finally has a couple of good games and gets injured again, it would just be a disaster really for him. So yeah, we'll look out for news on both of those. Further forward, we've mentioned him. I mean, we mention him every week. Caicedo, he's quietly becoming one of the best midfielders in the world right in front of our eyes, isn't he? He was already a colossus last season, particularly defensively, just probably one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. The fact he's now added goals to his game, and bear in mind that's his third goal of the season already. That's 3 goals, 2 of which are absolute worldies. Obviously, the one at Brentford as well. Scored a good goal from the corner at West Ham. He's added to his game not only goals, but some of his passing, and almost I think he's a couple of times this season he's pulled out Fabregas style passes, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know he had that in his locker. So to watch a player like that develop in front of our eyes is just very exciting, isn't it? We're very fortunate as Chelsea fans to have watched N'Golo Kante play for Chelsea. Again, one of the best ever in that position. I think he'll certainly the last 20, 30 years. And I don't want to put too much, you can end up overhyping players and it feels a bit unfair comparing them to others, but there is a comparison there in some of the ways they play, but Caicedo is just making it his own, isn't he? And the fact he did it obviously against Liverpool yesterday, the club that wanted to sign him so badly, just kind of as a reminder of how lucky we are to have him. He was just unreal. Another player I think that does deserve a shout is Garnacho. So direct, isn't he? Had Bradley on toast that first half. Every time he got the ball, he was an outlet. The way he's linking up with Cucurella, we mentioned it after the Champions League game in week against Benfica, but those two have very quickly seemed to have a bit of chemistry. Enzo Fernandez obviously likes to play when he's playing this position off the left as well, in that left pocket. So he obviously has a good relationship with his fellow Argentinian as well. And I feel like he was giving you everything you want. And the only thing that I'll say about him and Neto, because I think this applies to both of them, is they're just crying out for a proper number 9 in the box, aren't they? And how Liam Delap must be watching some of the balls that they're both putting in the box is thinking, oh, I'd be cleaning up here. Because Garnacho particularly loves that sort of, he does it so effectively where he drives down the left onto his left foot and plays really low sort of balls square across the box, which if you've got someone there, like Estevão did right, obviously, for the winning goal, which was just brilliantly in the right position, wanted it more than Robertson. But so many times we're seeing that ball comes in and there's no one there for Chelsea. So, yeah, I love the way he's starting to play, actually. And you're starting to see, I think, the signs of him where the United fans who are more positive about him are saying, yeah, he is a threat. And actually to do it in such a big game, I thought was fantastic. So big shout for him. And maybe a slightly more negative one. I do want to mention João Pedro, just because of the fact that in games like this, he isn't that sort of number 9, is he? And I had a look at some of the stats, because this is starting to interest me, because everyone's sort of saying, oh, he's never in the box. And actually, you can get some very easy stats on number of touches in the box, and he's just not having hardly any. So yesterday, he had 1 touch in the Liverpool box, and I looked through his last 5 or 6 games, and he's averaging 1 or 2 touches in the opposition box per game. So he really isn't having any touches. And to give some comparison, Mark Gui, who, as Joe said, was pressing relentlessly, but actually Mark only touched the ball twice in the game, but one of them was in the box. So in all the time he was on the pitch, he had as many touches as João Pedro in the box, just because he's there. Someone like Harry Kane, for example, when we played Bayern Munich, he had 7 touches in the box in that game. And yeah, João Pedro has not had anywhere close to that in a single game this season. So again, almost not a criticism of him, because it's just not his natural game, is it? He likes to drop deep and knit things together, and he does that brilliantly well. But I think, as I mentioned, you look at some of the way we play, and perhaps more of a problem against low blocks, which is why maybe we're seeing a bit more of a frustrating style of football in against teams who are going to come to Stamford Bridge in particular and just put 10 men behind the ball. You sometimes just want a box presence to just make something happen. You see it with Man City all the time. They've got Haaland, who's just about really the best in the world at it. But sometimes you don't need a pretty goal just to open the door, and then you can start playing football, because obviously the opposition has to start playing. So yeah, I don't know how long Delat will be out for, but maybe, as Joe said, we need to start seeing Mark Gui, whose name we're never going to get right, just so it gives us something a little bit different. And I think, yeah, what João Pedro does so brilliantly is not the stuff that sometimes we need to open this game up. A couple of other mentions. We mentioned Hato and Lavia, that both did very, very well, pretty much flawless, weren't they, when they came on? And I want to mention Jamie Gittins, because we've again been critical of his start to the season, just haven't seen enough. And I thought, yes, yesterday, that was a bit more like what we're asking for. He was just a lot more aggressive in possession, more confident. The game was really like a basketball game, wasn't it, for the last 15, 20 minutes? And I thought he did what you wanted of him. And we saw we saw the trick, didn't we? We saw that moment where he cut in on his right foot, got a decent shot away. And yeah, just generally, he had a bit more faith when he got the ball that something was going to happen. So a very, very small sign, but I think a small sign of encouragement. And again, hopefully the fact that he's done that against Liverpool should give him some confidence going forward. And Estevão, just a huge moment for his Chelsea career, wasn't it? You couldn't write it. You really couldn't write it for that moment to happen for him. Again, some of his dribbling at times, we've not seen anything like it since Eden Hazard, have we? In terms of the way the ball was almost glued to his foot. It was brilliant. And yeah, his reactions after the games, I've watched quite a few of the post-match bits and bobs. He was being shown the clips of his goal on a phone. He was reacting to it. He seems like a lovely lad, and we are really going to enjoy watching this guy develop. I think in a Chelsea shirt, it's going to be very, very, very exciting. I finished there. I mean, it's hopefully a galvanising win for the club, for the team. Big confidence boost for the squad as well, to show that they can do it. And I always say that the game before the international break is a big one, because it's just horrible when you lose it or don't get a good result and you've got 2 weeks to sit on it. Well, we've got the opposite of that. And yeah, can really sit back, watch the highlights a few more times, enjoy that moment of Maresca getting sent off for celebrating to going down the line. But do you know what a way to go, and come back very excited for what's next. I'll hand back over to Joe, but yeah, still buzzing.
Thanks, Chris, for all the insights there and your views on the game and some things going forward on certain players and what have you. But yeah, I think my overall
feeling today is one of immense pride, because it was a performance that I didn't think we had in us. And yeah, maybe that's a little bit of self-doubt of late. We haven't seen a lot this season of the team. I think there is a lot to be said for a club going through a stage where they've had a whole pre-season basically cut short to almost nothing. There are stats out there that sort of suggest that the club need to have a certain amount of days off, sort of kind of legally, if it were, and Chelsea didn't do that. They didn't have enough holiday after the season finished, and they didn't have enough of a pre-season to get going for the Premier League year. So will these things remain a factor? I'm not too sure. We're sort of in uncharted territory. No one really knows what's going to happen over the course of this season with Chelsea and their squad and stuff. I mean, so the injuries are now racking up for us, which isn't ideal, but maybe the international break has come at a good time for us. What we don't need now is to Reece to go away for a couple of games and get injured or something. That would really, God, that would really send the season into a spiral. But yeah, I mean, let's hope we can get some numbers back by our next Premier League fixture, and we can kind of have a little bit of a positive outlook on the squad again. I mean, I think Cole Palmer's entrance onto the field yesterday looked a little bit damning, didn't it? He didn't look overly sharp, should we say. I thought he looked a little bit stiff when he was on the field celebrating with his teammates. So fingers crossed he's not as bad as we think. And you mentioned him there, Chris, Liam Delap. It'd be great to get him back at some point soon. I know he's not ready after the break just yet, but that sort of partnership of him, Pedro and Palmer would have been something to behold this year, I think, for us, and we've not really seen that at all because of injuries. So yeah, scuppered us big time in that area at the moment, but we need to kind of keep going and keep plugging away and keep using our squad. And Mark Guéhiou, we need to use him a lot more. I think he's got such presence up front. He doesn't stop running. I don't care who you are, any defender doesn't want somebody running at them 90 miles an hour the entire time. So yeah, he's a real nuisance, and I think given the right tactics and the right formation, he could be very useful for us. And I think we must start using him a lot more, because he showed yesterday that he can do it against the best defenders in the world. So yeah, if you can do it against Liverpool, you can do it against anybody. As for Chelsea as a whole, I think we just need to see this sort of performance more often than not. We kind of get these games, don't we? We get quite excited about them, and then we have 2 or 3 weeks of sort of tippy-tappy, pretty ponderous football. So I would like to see Maresca come out and actually just say to people, do you know what? We can have a go at all these sides. The wingers that you started, the wingers that come on, everybody had a purpose. It's almost like we had a bit of a moment amongst ourselves, amongst the players, and just went, let's just have a free swing. If we get beat, we get beat. People are expecting us to get beat, so why don't we just go out there and give a performance that the fans can be proud of? And do you know what? Having a look at the highlights again, I've had a brief look at them today. Chelsea created so many crosses and so many attempts at the Liverpool goal in that last 20 minutes. It was incredible. I mean, they knocked on the door time and time again. And obviously when Enzo hits the post with what you think is our last chance, that fantastic cross from Estevão, you're thinking, well, that was the chance. And then we still had the guts and the determination to get forward. Again, Enzo and Cucurella linking on the left-hand side, and that fantastic pass for Estevão to knock in the back post. Yeah, just incredible scenes, and yeah, really emotional reaction myself. I think at a moment where I was just like, we can do it. We can do something. This year won't be quite the damp squib that I was thinking it could be. That they've given us hope, and I think that I just hope that we can jump all over it and actually go against some of these teams now and put a run of 4 or 5 wins together, because that's what sets you apart from everybody else. You can't beat Liverpool and then go and lose your next game. It just doesn't work like that. To be a top team, you've got to put your foot down. And I love the idea of when those wingers come on yesterday, that's what happened to them. 2 came off, 2 came on, and the flow of the game didn't change. We kept at them. We kept, and it was nice to see Jamie Gittins do that thing that we said, a little step over and whip that ball into the corner, which Maresca had to make a great save from, which he did. And yeah, just our overall play was just up and at them. Badiashile and Achimpong winning all their duels. They were so aggressive in their duel winning. They're heading, they're leaning around the centre forward to make a block or getting a toe poke in to push the ball back forward into midfield. They like you say, Chris, they passed the ball out so fantastically well. They drove forward with the ball. They were the driving force, and it was really interesting to see how high Chelsea played. They had such a high line And, usually against people with pace like Salah and Isak and those types of people, that's a dangerous game to play, because if you get it wrong, they've got 30, 40 yards of space to run into, and you're giving a tap into the opposition teams that have got fantastic strikers. But Chelsea believed in it. They obviously worked on it during the week. And with the fullbacks, those two centre halves, like you say, Chris, deserve an enormous pat on the back. They had an incredible game, but sadly, once again, we've given Badiashile there some credit, and he's injured again. Now, is he going to come back after the window? We don't know. But if he's now out for a few weeks or months, then, it's not going to be any good for us. But I think the word on the street is that he's not too bad. And I think Ajampong's the same, more precautionary than actual injury. But the way that we kind of continue to stay resolute and solid in the middle there with Reece and Hato when Hato come on, I think is a real credit to the side. And I think Hato has actually grown. Those first few games he come on as sub and he wasn't really in the game and he was making a few mistakes. I think he seems to have calmed down. That start that he got last week against Brighton, I think he's done in the world of good. Coming on a big game against Liverpool like that when the game was 1-1, real pressure moment, and he dealt with it fantastically well. And he's such a young boy that's a really good sign. I think we can't react too heavily one way or the other with these results, because if we come on here now and say, we've beaten Liverpool, we're going to go on a Champions League tear and a league run, last week we said we weren't going to do that. This is not something we're thinking, Chris and I, that overnight we've turned into the best team in Europe. We haven't. But I think it just gives you hope that the team have got a real solidity, they've got togetherness. And what it looks like from the outset now, which I've never seen before from Maresca really, is that he seems to be sticking by his players. Like, I've never seen Maresca run 100 metres down the touchline to celebrate a goal before in any game of football. I've never seen that passion from him. You see now and again bits and pieces, but he was agitated from minute one yesterday. And he's probably got a little bit of stick in the press. He's probably got a little bit of stick from, certain quarters of the club and what have you. And that was a bit of a release for him. I understand that, but it was good to fucking see. I want that in my manager. To have someone passive on the sideline, when you score a goal, is really, really dull for me. But he's got that sort of fire in his belly, and I think that it's only a positive thing when you've got your manager who stands by you and is willing to go to war with you, willing to get himself a red card because he doesn't give a monkeys what the rules are, if you like. He's just like, no, I'm going to celebrate that as passionately as if I was playing, type thing. I think that's what's so brilliant. It made it, it made it more special in a way. And the club have had some difficult moments this season already, like we've said before, but that was a real moment yesterday where I felt, we can kind of forget some of that stuff and be like, let's focus on what was good yesterday. And there was a lot of good. I mean, to be honest with you, we wouldn't have time to go through the whole podcast with every individual player and every individual tactical performance and moment in the game. But my goodness me, it was really refreshing to see a Chelsea team play with such spirit, fight and togetherness. It was just wonderful. And I think Chris and I would love to hear from you guys. If you were at the game yesterday, if you were watching it in America, if you were watching it in Australia, what was your take? What was your reaction? Were you in the pub? Were you at home? Were you with your children? These are the experiences that I think all Chelsea fans should share. Whether it's on Instagram, via email with us, whatever. Let us know. What was your reaction to that? And where do you see this Chelsea team going? What are your feelings about the club, Maresca and everybody else? Let us know, because I think it's the more we can get out of people, the more we can kind of respond to some stuff and give you some real, solid answers from people that go to the games. I mean, there's no greater feeling than having one step beyond play after a victory like that. And you mentioned it, Chris, about a year ago when we were devoid of any of these sort of performances and these last-minute winners and against big teams and stuff. We hadn't had it for a while. So again, having that yesterday, beating Liverpool on a level playing field, as it were, with them not saying they had a weakened team, as it were, because they won the league last year. Beating them on a proper fight of a game. It just feels so good. Those are the feelings that you want in your football team. Playing against, like you say, no disrespect, but Wolves or Crystal Palace or whatever. You win those games, great, fantastic. But doing it against a big team like Arsenal, Liverpool, or Manchester United, Man City, it just adds a little bit extra spice to your weekend, a little bit of an extra pep in your step. And I've just been to watch my son play. And they had a fantastic feisty game of football, and which they come on the right side of, a fantastic victory, which he scored again, which is nice. But obviously I met a lot of Liverpool fans on the sidelines today, and it's amazing how many of those people didn't want to talk about football today. And normally it's the other way around. So that was always entertaining to sort of get a take on how they were feeling. And they think they are disappointed that every game they're playing at the moment is like a basketball game. It's, you have a shot, we have a shot. But actually, do you know what, yesterday I felt as though Chelsea dominated that game fairly heavily. Liverpool had their moments, particularly over half-time, I thought, maybe at the very beginning. But I thought Chelsea came on so strong in that last 25 minutes when I thought we would actually go the other way. We were the ones kind of sitting back and hoping for a draw. Fair play to Maresca and Chelsea, they went for it and they got what they deserved. And sometimes in football, the braver you are, the more you do deserve, and they certainly got what they wanted yesterday. And yeah, 3 fantastic points going into the break. And as far as I'm concerned, just enjoy this result as a one-off, and let's see what happens after this, because it's, like I say, it's the next result. Can we build on the next one? We can't keep winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. So let's hope we can be that team that can go on a little run now of 4 or 5 wins in a row, and maybe even more than that.
We'll finish the pod this week with a question for you as a listener. Is there anything that you would like us to talk about in our international break episode? If you've got a topic or a question or again, a view that you want to put across yourself, we'd love to hear it, and we will include it in our episode that will come out kind of halfway through the break. So email us at hello@1905podcast.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram, which is 1905podcast. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And if there's anything you want to talk about, anything around Chelsea, let us know. But I'm going to go and finish by going to watch that Estevão goal for about the 55th time today from every single angle that I can find online. Good times. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.